Now let's take a look at appending new geometry to our model. So it's nice that we can come in here and sculpt this geometry, but it would also be cool if we could have multiple pieces of geometry with this same Z tool. Now you can see here under Subtool, we have a bunch of different slots, and we can actually add new geometry in those slots. So let's say we want to add some eyes to this guy. Well, we can select our subtool, and then we can go to Append, and that'll bring up the tool palette here, and we can come in and add whatever tool we happen to want to append, and that'll include it with the subtool. So let's say, in this case, I just want to add a sphere. So now it's added a sphere, but it's not really in the right spot. You can see it located here, and there are a couple of ways that we can select that subtool. Right now we still have 05, this creature selected, so if I were to come in and move this, it's going to actually work on this. But we can either click in the subtool, subpalette here, or we can alt-click in the canvas on the particular model. So we've got the sphere selected. We're going to go, instead of to draw, which will allow us to sculpt, we're going to go to move. That brings up something called the transpose line. Okay, and so I'm going to turn off perspective here. Now, transpose line, we can draw this out across our model, and then we can use it to move our model around. We can also use it to rotate the model or scale the model based on how we manipulate this. And we can constantly continue to draw out the transpose. Okay, you can see here I want to draw it out on the object, or I can click on the object. But I'm just going to draw it out and use the center point and move this up. Let's come in from the front view, and I'm just going to scale this down. Now there are a couple of ways to scale things, but for our purposes I'm just going to use transpose, and I want to get it kind of in the right spot, and I want to make sure that it's nice and round there. And let's kind of scale it down as a whole. There we go. And kind of move it back into the eye socket. And you'll notice that it's not going to match exactly with the eye socket, and that's kind of the reason we're putting it in there, so that when we begin to shape and sculpt our model, it is shaped around this this eye. Okay, and you can see kind of the pole right there. Just because we want to do a little bit of sculpting on this later, we can come in, and I'm just going to rotate this around just a little bit. So I'm going to come in here and kind of rotate this a little. And then I just want to kind of move it back into the head. So I think something like that is good. Okay. Now I want to add a little bit of detail to this. So I'm going to come in here, and I want to get a planar brush, but you can see there's only one in there, and there's a specific brush I want. So I'm going to use the Lightbox, and this is going to allow us to get different kinds of presets, Z tools and materials, and in this case brushes. I'm going to come over to the planar brushes, and I want to get, let's just get planar cut. Get kind of a low draw size and decrease the focal shift, which is kind of the softness of the stroke. And then I can come in here and just right on the end there create kind of a flat spot. Okay, and I think I want it to be just a little bit bigger. So maybe something like that. Okay, now I can come in with a smaller size right in the middle. Okay, and then let me get that right in the center. So something like that. Now let's create the other eye. Now to do that, we can go into Z plugin, and there's something called the Subtool Master. So let's open that up, and this is going to allow us to do some other things with our subtools. In this case, mirror them. So let's go to Mirror, and we can choose whether to merge this new one into one subtool, so both eyes would be in the same subtool, or append it as a new one. and we want to go across the x-axis, so we'll say OK. And that's going to take that sphere and mirror it over to the other side. Okay, so now what we can do is go back to Move, a large draw size. We're back on our basic creature subtool, not the eyes. And now, when we modify our geometry, you can see we can actually use the eyes as a base and say, okay, I want them to wrap right around that geometry, so we can move it in just the right place so that it looks like those eyes are a little bit more integrated into the head. Okay, before we actually start doing our proper sculpting. Okay, maybe give a little bit more thickness to these brows here. You want to work from different angles as you go as well. Okay, so now it wraps a little bit better around those eyes. So once we've got our eyes in place, let's, in the next lesson, begin to do some subdivision sculpting on this guy. So we'll sculpt in some of the main overall features, and then also some of the wrinkles and skin detail and things like that. So let's go ahead and do that next.